Hi guys, welcome to the Carlson method. Today's video is about becoming a new mom. These are some pieces of advice that I didn't necessarily listen to, but really wish that I would have. So, just so we're clear, I'm not a doctor or a healthcare professional in any way. So here it goes. The first thing that I think you should do before becoming a mom is gain some upper body strength. I know that sounds kind of silly, and if you already have upper body strength, maintain it. It is going to help you so much after actually having the baby. So the reason is because babies grow so quickly. I mean, Shay is 6 months old and he's already 20 pounds. He's a big boy. And because they grow so quickly, it's a good idea to have, or from what I've experienced personally, I would have liked to have some upper body strength. I currently have none and I'm working on that, but oh my goodness. Taking Shay's car seat, so the car seat itself weighs like, maybe 10 pounds. Probably, maybe not that, I don't know. I haven't weighed it, but it weighs a fair amount itself. And then plus a 20-pound baby inside of the car seat, taking that down a flight of stairs, getting it loaded into a car and then taking it into a store or taking it into whatever. It's a lot and it takes a toll. And if you don't have upper body strength or even leg strength, you're using your back a lot, and that sucks. Point number 2, sleep when baby sleeps. Now I say this, and this isn't something that I did, and I super regret that, because at one point I was so sleep deprived that I was experiencing vertigo. I called my sister. I was like, what's happening to me? I was crying. I was so upset. I ended up going to the doctor, and it just turns out I needed some more sleep. Even though when your baby is first born, all it does is sleep. Babies sleep. They sleep a lot, and you'd think you'd have plenty of time to sleep while they're sleeping. Well, I don't know about you, but I wanted to shower, clean my house, do things like that. And don't get me wrong, Casey was a huge help in a lot of that. He helped keep the house clean, and he helped as much as he could, but when he had to go back to work, it was hard. And so, adapting to this new situation is difficult, and getting enough sleep, I think, is key. Another thing, which brings me to my next point, is I had to prepare meals. So it's recommended, any midwife, doctor, person who's, your mom will be like, make sure you have some meals put in the freezer. And 100% make sure that you do that. Like, even if you miraculously have the time to prepare meals after having a baby, first of all, you're annoying. Second, it's exhausting. Having a baby, even though it's sleeping all of the time when it's first born, is exhausting, especially if you're breastfeeding. Your body is going through so many changes so abruptly that it's difficult. And so even if you do have time to prepare meals for your family, this energy saver is just, I wish I would have listened. And I fully intended on doing that. I ran out of time. All of a sudden, I was in the hospital having a baby. And I was like, oh shoot, I didn't prepare those crock pot meals that I was going to and stick them in my freezer. Another thing that kind of goes with that is, and this isn't necessarily part of the list, but another thing that goes with that is actually having support. When people are like, hey, is there anything I can do? Yeah, dude, come over and make me dinner. Come do my dishes. Throw a load of laundry in for me. Like, I'm exhausted. And, you know, Casey's working and he's on very little sleep, so he's exhausted too. You can't expect him to do everything for you, even though he was. Bless his freaking heart. I have the best husband. You should be jealous, and you really should be. He's so amazing. So sleep when baby sleeps, prep food, do those things. It will save your life. Okay. This one is a little controversial, but I fully recommend this. I 100% stand by this, and I'm going to try to keep it as diplomatic as possible, but obviously from that disclaimer, you can see where I stand on this situation. Research vaccines. I'm not a crazy person. Research your vaccines. Make sure you know what they contain, what the risks are for administering those vaccines. Read that information. And it's not information necessarily that's from, you know, these doctors that are labeled as quacks, which, you know, to each his own. But this is stuff that is on the CDC's website. This is information that your doctors have. So make sure you read that. Each vaccine comes with an insert, and just take that piece of paper home, or several pieces of paper, and just read at least the risks, and make sure that that's something that you are willing to, you know, make sure that's a risk you're willing to take. There's a lot of scary information out there, and I'm not gonna, you know, encourage anybody either way. It's 100% your choice. I personally, I don't agree with it, but that being said, make sure you do your own research. Make sure you are comfortable with what is being put in your baby's body, because when it comes down to it, you are the parent and you have the choice. So I encourage you, do that research. And also, I think a lot of people are like, well, I have to vaccinate because when I send them to school, they have to be vaccinated. Look at your state laws. Make sure that that's really a thing. Look at your exemption laws and see what your options are, and make sure that you just keep yourself educated on that. So the next one is, make sure you take care of your hormones. This is very personal to me. It's a whole, like, I could do a whole other video series probably on this situation, but just make sure that you keep your hormones in check. If you are at high risk for hormone imbalances, for example, one thing that put me at risk is the fact I was overweight when I got pregnant. That immediately puts you at risk for hormone imbalances, right? I'm not saying that big girls aren't beautiful. I'm saying that your body is made to hold a certain amount of fat on it. And when you exceed that limit, you are putting yourself at risk for health problems. So make sure you get you get tested on those. If you have diabetes, or like, for example, my mom had gestational diabetes when she was pregnant with me. And so again, that is another risk factor that I have for having hormone imbalances. So those are some things to maybe look at. If you have history of thyroid issues in your family, or even with yourself, make sure you get your hormone levels tested and to where they need to be. Again, I highly recommend being at a healthy weight and having a healthy lifestyle, obviously, before becoming pregnant. I get that pregnancy isn't always planned, but that I think is just, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because I want to have another baby, and I want to make sure that I go into that pregnancy and not have the complications that I had with Shay, because it was, again, this is a whole other video, but it was rough, to say the least. So get your hormones in check. Next is breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is so important, and I am still so salty about the fact that I wasn't able to breastfeed. Like, it's hard to think about the fact that I wasn't able to do that with my son. I was able to do it for a little while. I gave him as much as I possibly could, but this kind of goes back to the hormone thing. If your hormones are effed up, then that makes breastfeeding that much more difficult. So make sure you do what you got to do to make sure that you can breastfeed. Am I an advocate for breastfeeding? Yes. Should you breastfeed? 100%. I'm not a doctor. You should breastfeed. Breastfeed your freaking baby. Don't be that way. I am one of those people who couldn't, so I'm not insensitive to that. I 100% understand that it's not possible for everybody. There are circumstances that make it so hard, but breastfeeding is hard. It's an undertaking, and you need support. So make sure that you get support. Take a class. Keep in contact with your midwives, with your lactation consultants. Do what you have to do to maintain your supply. Get herbal supplements if that is an option for you. Drink the teas, make the lactation cookies. Do what you have to do to make sure that you have breast milk. It's painful to know that I wasn't able to breastfeed my son. I hate it. I hate it, and I would not wish this feeling upon anybody, any mother ever. Breastfeed your freaking baby. Just do it. So, next is trust yourself. You are the mom, and you know what is best for you and your baby. Mother Nature, God, Allah, whatever, like, this being, this entity, this greater power gave you a natural instinct, a maternal instinct. Trust that. You know what is best for you and your baby. It's so important to be your child's advocate. It is Child Abuse Awareness Month. So you know what? Here it is. Be the person you needed as a child. I'm not saying that my parents neglected me in any way, shape, or form, but there were times as a child that I needed an advocate. And I guarantee every child has been in that situation where, oh, you're just a kid, I don't need to listen to you. No, listen to your child. Don't be an a-hole. Listen to your kid. Kids have instincts, and they are very intuitive, almost to like a paranormal level. It's creepy sometimes, but that being said, they have instincts too. Listen to them. Be your child's advocate. And this kind of goes back to the whole vaccine thing. You know, of course, if you go to a doctor, they're going to tell you need vaccines. Why wouldn't they? Just like they're going to tell you you need this pill and that pill and, you know, whatever else. It's because they're trained by the pharmaceutical companies. Again, I know this is a controversial topic, but it is what it is, and it needs to be said. So Be your child's advocate. Be your advocate. When you're pregnant, they try to push flu shots. They try to push the DTaP vaccine or Tdap, the diphtheria pertussis tetanus one. Be your child's advocate. Because they can't defend themselves. They're helpless. They're helpless little beings and they need you. So be that person for them. Okay, again. Whew. My next point is get a doula. Especially if you are going to, if you have the intention to give birth naturally, get a doula. I was told so many times, get a doula. And I was like, I don't need a doula. I have my husband and my mom and my sister and they're so supportive. Heather, Mom, I love you guys. But they didn't know what my intentions were. They didn't understand what my intentions were. And honestly, they were scared of them. I wanted to have this beautiful home birth in a little tub in my living room. You know, like I wanted that experience. I went to a birthing center and I was like, you know what? Maybe a home birth isn't quite for us because Casey was nervous about it. He was like, I don't want anything to happen, even though we live down the street from a hospital, whatever. But he was like, I don't want anything to happen to you or the baby. And like, you know, he was scared, rightfully so. A lot of people are nervous about childbirth. That's a legitimate fear. I get it. But my mom and my sister were not comfortable with me having the baby at my home at all. And even a little skeptical about doing it at a birthing center. Because I was like, I don't want an epidural. I don't want the stupid nitrous oxide. My body is made for this. I want to have a baby the way my body intended. I want to do this all naturally. That's a joke. I mean, it's not. It's a very serious thing. But for me, what happened is, again, another video. But so get a doula, because while I did bring my mom and my sister and my husband around to the idea of doing the natural birth in the birthing center, I could have used a little bit more support on that. And yeah, I had midwives, and one of my midwives she was great. Meta, you are a wonderful midwife, and I will definitely be going to see her again. But the thing about midwives and doctors is they're there to make sure that your baby gets delivered safely. Yes, they want to give you the birthing experience that you want. They want that for you too. But their ultimate goal is to bring your baby into this world safely. And whereas a doula is like the mom's BFF. The doula is there to make sure that what you want for your birth is what you get, and nobody is going to talk you out of it or convince you you can't. She is there to say, yes, you can, Obama style. Yes, get a doula. Are they expensive? Sure, but it's 100% worth it. I really wish that I would have had a doula. I 100% wish that I would have had a doula. Things would have, I think, turned out very different. Again, this is what my body is made to do, and a doula knows that and is your advocate. You are your child's advocate. Your midwife is there to make sure that your baby gets delivered safely. Dad is there to have a heart attack and you know, like be nervous about the whole thing. Like, oh my gosh, my wife is going to be in so much pain and there's nothing I can do about it. Like, this is a scary situation for Dad. But back to those maternal instincts. I know what my body is capable of. I know what I can do. And I could have given birth to my son naturally if I would have just had an advocate, somebody to tell me that I don't have to listen to what these people are saying. They're wrong. Things would be so different. So get a doula. Like, these things are so personal to me in my experience. Yes. But I am sharing them because I don't want anybody to experience what I did. Childbirth can be a traumatic experience emotionally. And that's another thing that doctors and midwives, you know, they are there to make sure that your baby gets here safely. And they sometimes, a lot of the time actually, don't consider how it's going to affect you emotionally. Whereas the doula is there to make sure that you don't have that trauma. And so I guess that's like a little added thing is if you end up having childbirth trauma, like emotional trauma, and I don't use the word trauma lightly, but if that happens to you, seek counseling. I'm not a person that is like prone to depression in any way. I am a fairly stable person, but it affected me and it was hard. And it was not only hard for me, but it was so hard on the baby and it was so hard on my husband watching us go through that. And, you know, so just make sure that you get that help, get a doula, seek counseling after having a baby. It's so important. This one is so important. I had such bad sciatica pain 5 weeks into my pregnancy. Just 5 weeks. The baby is like, I don't even know, the size of like my pinky nail. Ridiculous. Why does that hurt me? I don't know, but it did. And I had really bad back pain throughout my entire pregnancy. Right towards the end, it started to get better, but I wasn't doing much. Like, I was huge and I didn't do anything. And then after having him, I was in a tremendous amount of pain. I ended up getting a spinal headache from the epidural. Then they tried to fix that with a blood patch, which drained a little bit more of my spinal fluid, which made it worse. And then when I went back to the ER after they had discharged me, they were like, well, we got to test you for meningitis. So they did a lumbar puncture, thus taking more of my spinal fluid. So I was in a tremendous amount of pain from that. And I was horizontal for about 2 weeks. Because of that spinal headache. It was rough. And one thing that I really, truly believe in is chiropractic care. Again, this is a thing that I didn't listen to. I was like, oh, I know everything. I don't need a chiropractor. I'll just do some stretches. No, go see a chiropractor. Get adjusted. They're so beneficial. I was to the point where I couldn't hold Shay. I could not hold him. And so while Casey was at work, I was just like, you know, doubled over in pain. Just, it sucked so bad. He would get home from work and I would just hand the baby off. It made me feel so bad that I couldn't just hold my boy. And go to a chiropractor. Before, during, and after, your body is going through so many changes and so many shifts. Things are moving around. And a chiropractor will help to keep that all aligned, which will keep your nervous system all flowing and working properly, your blood going to where it needs to be going to make sure that everything stays healthy. So go to a chiropractor. There's so many benefits. Those are just to name a few. Even if you're not pregnant, go to a chiropractor. They're amazing. Okay, so another thing, after I've told you my horror stories, don't listen to horror stories. People are mean. People are so mean to pregnant women. They're like, oh, you know that thing's gonna rip you apart when it comes out. And one person, oh my gosh. So I was at the store and I was checking out and I was 8 months pregnant. And this lady was like, oh, what are you having? And I was like, a boy. And she was like, is it twins? I don't notice how I said a boy. Also, who asks a pregnant woman if they're having twins? Tact, people, work on it. Tact. Good Lord. Anyways, so don't listen to horror stories. Don't listen to mean things people say. You know what you are emotionally capable of. You chose to have a baby. You can do this. Don't. And if you are not emotionally capable to make your life not about you anymore, it's about your baby, don't have a kid. Don't. Don't bring a child into this world that you cannot emotionally take care of, or financially, or physically. Don't do that. It's a disservice to you. It's a disservice to that child. Like, don't be an a-hole. So that is my list of things. I don't even know how many things. It's 10 things you should know before becoming a mother. Thanks. That one was just a personal, I was like, I should have really prepared myself a little bit more for this.